The Montreal Canadiens are entering the next stage of their rebuild. Rebuilding is a process with various stages. You don't just go from a team that's rebuilding to a team ready to contend. The last 2 seasons have been pretty bad, and not very fun. There have been moments, sure, but injuries prevented people from really enjoying the growth that several players had last season. This season they are entering a different phase of the rebuild. No bigger indicator of that was the placement of Joel Armia on waivers. Last year, the Canadiens did everything they could to raise the trade value of some of their players. Yevgeny Dadonov, Mike Hoffman, and Joel Edmundson were prime examples of that, and maybe even Armia himself. Now, the Canadiens are basically declaring that the potential mid-round pick in exchange for retaining some salary on Armia isn't as important to them as giving the ice time to their young players. In other words, the collect future assets at any cost phase is now over. That doesn't mean the Canadiens become buyers, or that they won't be sellers, it just means they aren't sellers at the expense of developing players at the NHL level. This is the first year that you can really say that most of the future core of the franchise is at the NHL and AHL levels. There are some exceptions, obviously, but the Laval Rocket only have 9 players in training camp aged 25 or older. They only have 3 players older than 27, including Armia. That team is quickly becoming very young. The vibes surrounding the Canadiens are great. The expectations and pressure is still low, but the players can look around and know that they are going to improve together. They are going to learn to win together. There will be other players coming in, but for the most part, this is the real start of the future core becoming the core. If it all goes right, the ideal realistic scenario for the Canadiens would be a season that puts them on par with where the Buffalo Sabres and Ottawa Senators were last season. All of their top young players take another step forward, some establish themselves in that near-elite category, and the team collects another top 10 pick. There are no more questions about a lack of elite talent because they have multiple players over 80 points. If the power play becomes more effective and less like an in-game bathroom break, they might even have someone flirt with triple digits. The young defenders make life hard not only for their opponents but for the coaches and management who need to decide which ones are most deserving. Hello fan, how are you? Quickly passing by just to remind you to like my video to give me that support. If it all goes wrong, the biggest knock on the current Montreal Canadiens is that there is a lack of elite talent in the pipeline. The worst-case scenario for the team is that they are proven right. If Nick Suzuki really is only a 70-point player and Kirby Dach isn't much better, the team could be in trouble. If Cole Caulfield, despite last year's pace and some saying he can score 50 this season, tops out as a 38-goal scorer instead of a guy hitting 50, that's a problem. If Uri Slavkovsky doesn't look any more comfortable than he did, and isn't able to become a top 6 player, that's a problem. If the Canadiens finish in the bottom 3 of the league not because of injuries, or bad luck, or goaltending, and finish there because the current team isn't good enough, it will likely never be good enough under this core. If that's the case, Macklin Celebrini or Cole Yzerman become the start of the new core, not an addition to the current one, because then this team just simply won't be good enough. The good news after reading that last bullet point is that the likely scenario is somewhere in the middle. Call me crazy, but I think you can win with Nick Suzuki and Kirby Dach as your top 2 centers down the road. They need to be well surrounded, sure, but so does Connor McDavid if he expects to win a championship. Bold prediction number 1, the Canadiens, finally having a relatively healthy season, will be in the top half of teams in goals scored. They haven't been there since 2018-19. Bold prediction number 2, the Canadiens will have at least 8 players hit the 20-goal mark. Last year, they had 3. Bold prediction number 3, that team won't be Montreal. Obviously they're at an advantage that they are earlier in the rebuild, and it won't be this season, but they'll get there. Bold prediction number 4, the Canadiens will be closer to a playoff spot, in terms of points, than to last place in the NHL. Last year they were 24 points out of the final playoff spot and 10 points from last place in the NHL. And now, Montreal Canadiens supporter, I want to hear from you. What's your opinion about this? Put your opinion in the comments. I don't know if you're aware, but your opinion is very important to us. I'll be back with more urgent news at any moment.